Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer 55551, and I am back with a My Two Cent video for this week, for the week of February 1st to the 7th, 2026, where I take a look at a couple of stories that caught my attention and give you my thoughts and my opinion about. And we have basically four stories to cover this week, including the Nintendo Partner Showcase that happened this week, though. Nintendo releasing their financial report and also responding to the situation surrounding Metroid Prime 4 Beyond sale numbers or anything like that after it was absent from the financial report, though, and everything. Nioh 3 or No 3, depending on if I'm saying the name correctly, though, may actually be a timed exclusive, though. And Sega coming out talking about Sonic Racing and how that, or Racing CrossWorlds, how that didn't perform as well as Sega had hoped for and all. If you're interested in where you got the source of these, or I got the source of these information, links will be in the description down below, assuming you watch this video either on YouTube and Patreon. And of course, the timestamps will also be there if there are certain parts of this video you wish to skip to and all. But before we get started, I like to do what I like to call the quick My Two Cent, stories that kind of caught my attention, but I'm not going to go into a huge amount of details. The first one has to do with a new Paper Mario RPG style called Escape from Ever After that has launched on the Switch. The trailer did come out for this one, and judging from what I've seen from this one, though, this one looks very interesting indeed, though. I might take a look at this one if I get the chance, though. We'll see in terms of how well that game does. It seems to be more closer to Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, which is held by high regards as probably the best entry in the Paper Mario series and all. And I'm hoping, depending on how well that remake of the remaster of Paper Mario Thousand Years Doors did, hopefully that convinces Nintendo if they're doing if another Paper Mario game happens, maybe go back to the kind of style that Thousand Year Door was to be exact, though. So just to point that out. But either way, it's worth this Paper Mario style RPG game, Escape from Ever After. Might be something I might take a look at, though. We also learned that Obsidian has come out and saying that basically a third entry in the Outer Worlds is not being planned, or it's just not going to happen at all. This has to do with a report coming out that both Evolve and Outer Worlds 2 did not perform very well and everything. Now, there are many speculations to some of that, though. Some are pointing to the 30% sort of profit margin that I think Microsoft wanted to head towards, or though they've come out and denied that, depending on who you're asking, whether you believe that or not. Others point to Game Pass as maybe a factor as well, which, again, Game Pass can be kind of a double-edged sword kind of a way. There has been some cases it might hinder sales for games and everything like that, but at the same time, it has been known to help developers out there as well. So depends, really, though. That one can be a double-edged sword and everything, but it is a little bit unfortunate indeed, because I did enjoy both Evolve and I am currently enjoying the Outer Worlds 2 and all. You could also point to some of the strategies or some of the approach Microsoft has been making and everything like that. Who knows, maybe if they do bring these games over to the Switch 2, maybe they'll do well there. I mean, we'll have to wait and see if that does happen or not, but at least according to what Obsidian's saying, though, it's unlikely we'll see a third entry in the Outer Worlds series, although they are claiming they may do another entry with Evolve and all, which I'm a little disappointed with Outer Worlds, though. Evolve, I hope we do see, wouldn't mind seeing their entry and all. We also heard rumors that seem to be going around that basically the next Xbox console may not be released until at least late 2027. A lot of people have a lot of speculation is coming down to the whole RAM shortage situation, the whole AI database, though. However, AMD seems to have come out and has mentioned that they believe a chip that they're developing for Xbox's next console, which is rumored to be sort of like a PC console hybrid type of approach or something, is saying that they're processing well to release in 2027. So we'll see what happens. Maybe it is possible we may not see it late or anything like that. Maybe what AMD could be saying is correct, though. I will say this generation has sort of been an odd situation, as the push for the next generation console you're not seeing that big of a push as we've seen in the past. Some of it has to do with, the shipping situation and COVID, when those two systems launched back in 2020, and many felt that those systems haven't yet to been utilized and everything like that. So we'll have to wait and see on that one, though. We also learned that Nate the Hate is doubling down on saying that a current gen or remaster or remake of Red Dead Redemption 2 is still coming this year. Obviously, this was not shown off during whether it was the Xbox Developers Direct or the Partner Showcase in any way, though. And there was some speculation it may not be released this year due to the fact that Rockstar and Take-Two Interactive could be going all in on advertising Grand Theft Auto 6, which basically is supposed to be still set for later this year and all. But, I mean, again, I'm not going to outright dismiss Nate the Hate, though. He has been right before, though, but still taking it with a grain of salt. However, since Red Dead Redemption did get a Switch 2 edition, recently, an update and everything like that, I would not be surprised to see Red Dead Redemption 2 come to the Switch 2 or a current gen version of that game and all. We also learned that Starfield for Switch 2, or at least what Shinobi 602 is saying, believes that that version could be pushed back or could be have been canceled and all. For those who may or may not be familiar, there have been rumors going around that Starfield could make its way to not only the Switch 2 but the PS5. A lot of this has to do with supposedly an update that will be coming up, considering what many are dubbed Starfield 2.0 or something like that. So we'll have to wait and see. It is worth pointing out that Microsoft and Bethesda have yet to confirm Starfield coming to basically either the Switch 2 or the PS5 at this time, but given their new multi-platform approach, though, I wouldn't be surprised if those games make their way over to the make their way over to another systems. It would be unfortunate if it was canceled for the Switch 2. I wouldn't lose complete sleep over it, but certainly would be unfortunate, though. I thought Starfield, at least in my view, is, as far as Bethesda made game or Bethesda RPGs go, I do think it's one of their better games that they put out. I'm not saying it's perfect or anything, and I'm not saying the game isn't without its share of criticisms, but it's definitely one of Bethesda's, in my view, best game that they have made and all. And let's go. And last but not least, we also learned that the Switch 2 version of Borderlands 4 has recently been reported has been paused and all. This comes off the heel as there were claims that the game was going to be coming out on at least this month on the 16th. Whether that was true or not, who knows? But if this report is true, though, then that is a little bit unfortunate. Many are speculating that this could be ended up like what we saw with Alien Colonial Marines, where after that game was released for the PS3 and the 360, there were plans to bring this game to the Wii U. However, following the entire backlash that Gearbox got after the whole Alien Colonial Marines debacle, combined with supposedly footage of the Wii U version running badly, though, they eventually pulled the plug on that game, and that's what many people fear that this could happen, as there has been some reports that the Switch 2 version wasn't running as well as some people had hoped for, though. This also combined with how Borderlands 4 didn't launch in a proper state, especially on the PC. And then, of course, you had the CEO, Randy Pitchford, coming out and really making the situation worse than making it better by opening his mouth, which he has a history of putting his foot in his mouth, to the point that they are trying to update and fix the game and all. So there's all that kind of factor, though. They're saying it's paused, but many speculate it could be canceled. I wouldn't be shocked if it does. Wouldn't be surprised if it does get canceled and all. I'm hoping that's not the case, but that developer video on Nintendo's channel with Randy Pitchford talking about bringing Borderlands 4 to the Switch 2, let's just say that hasn't aged as well. And one last thing about that, there are rumors, or at least a story floating around, that one of the reasons why Borderlands 4 on the Switch 2 has been paused is that Rockstar is looking, or let's say Take-Two is looking at bringing GTA 6 to the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, I don't know how accurate that story is. It could just be nothing more than a rumor. That is a possibility. That said, we have seen a lot of developers try to put their games onto the Switch too, and we've seen impossible ports come to, Nintendo's platform, especially during the Switch 1 era. So it's by no means out of the realm of possibility, but I would stop short in saying it's spot on at this time. So we'll have to wait and see, but for right now, at least according to what Take-Two is saying, Borderlands 4 on the Switch 2 is supposedly they are pausing development of that game, at least for the time being and all. And in the movie and TV show part of the Quick My Two Cent, a new trailer was shown off for the second season of Monarch Legacy of Monsters, which this one showed more of Godzilla and King Kong and everything. I'm very curious to see where season 2 of that one is placed though, because season 1 was obviously placed after the events of Godzilla King of the Monster or Godzilla 2015. I think it was called Godzilla, and that was released in 2015. Before, I think, the start of Godzilla Legacy of Monster or Godzilla vs. King Kong. So I am a little curious to see where this is being placed and everything. So it'll be very interesting to see. It's definitely, in my view, one of Apple TV's better shows. So I certainly will be keeping an eye on this one, or at least one that's named. At least that's one. At least it's from my perspective, though. We also learned that this week, though, we saw that Bob Iger will eventually be stepping down this year or near the end of this year, as some new names has been named for the new CEO of Disney and all, by the name of Josh D'Amaro, if I'm saying this correctly. He supposedly handled a lot of the theme park side of this, though. How well he does as CEO remains to be seen. Hopefully, this one will be handled better than the last one, which unfortunately, a lot of that had to do with certain controversies that eventually he had to step down. Bob Iger had to come back and everything. So we'll see about that, though. Meanwhile, another person that was at least in the running to be the new CEO of Disney, Dana Winan, unfortunately didn't get the part, but will still remain oversight over Disney's films and all. So that is certainly interesting indeed. And of course, last but not least, we are learning rumors that a new Sonic animated series is supposedly in the works, though. Again, this comes from the same person who supposedly claims about upcoming Sonic the Hedgehog 4 movie. Again, this information may or may not be correct, so I think a grain of salt still needs to be taken with that, though. That said, I wouldn't be against a new animated series if it does happen, though. It remains to be seen if it will be a 2D animation or the kind of 3D animation we saw with Sonic Prime that was on Netflix and all. So we'll have to wait and see if this does come to fruition or not and all. Okay, with the Quick My Two Cent part now done, along with the movie and TV show part of the Quick My Two Cent, we'll get started with our first story. And this has to do with Sonic Racing CrossWorlds, the game in which Sega has put out turns out at least how the game did and everything. Now, we have seen other games out there that kind of have, to some degree, competed against, Mario Kart and all. And while Mario Kart, or the Mario Kart series, and while that series still remains, I'd say, the king of sort of those miscellaneous racing games, though, we have seen others that have done well as well, or at least have an audience, whether it's Crash Nitro Racing to even Sega's, with their Sonic Racing series and all. And over the years, that series has seen different versions here and there, using a lot of the characters from, the Sega franchise, including some that we've never seen before. I remember the one on the Wii where they had, I believe, 2 of the characters from an absurd or unusual House of the Dead game that never saw the light of day here in the West. I think it was called House of the Dead DX or something. I believe that's the name. I'm not 100% sure about, though. However, recently Sega sort of put out sort of a statement in regards of the game, and supposedly, at least according to what Sega is saying, the game did not meet its expectations, or what expectations Sega set, though. In an article from Nintendo Life, let me get that over here. Oh, there we go. All right. It basically said, though, quote, Sega has released its latest financial reporting, confirming that despite strong critical reception, Sonic Racing Crossroad has failed to meet the company's expectation. The quote from one of the directors of the board and senior executive vice president can be found in a PDF presentation from the financial release. They pointed out a bit of update saying the release in question is actually an overlooked reporting dating back to November 2025, though the comment is still relevant today. He details an objective to sell a further 1 million copies of the game over the next fiscal year, which he hopes will bolster by ongoing release of downloadable content. This is what he had to say, though, saying, quote, now I would like to talk about Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. It has received a high rating score with over 80 on Metascore and Metacritic and earning an overwhelmingly positive 1 rating on Steam customer reviews. We recently announced that worldwide compilation sales has surpassed 1 million units. However, internal performance did not meet our expectations, and we are aiming to sell approximately another 1 million within the fiscal year. We aim to sustain long-term sales by encouraging players to enjoy the game over time, though they continue support of the title includes ongoing release of additional downloadable content. Sega noticed that the overall performance in the first half of the current fiscal year has been somewhat disappointing, citing lower than expected sales in the gaming division, along with Rubio's performance in the entertainment sector. The presentation highlighted Yakuza Kiwi 3 and Dark Tides as a major full game release for the fiscal year, but we suspect it will probably want a few more big hitters as the wider industry grips with uncertainty, economics, and price hike across the board. So, obviously the game did not do as well as Sega had hoped for, at least according to what they're saying, though. But we'll see. Maybe over time the game will find an audience and something like that. So maybe if they had released it around, like if Sonic 4 was to come out or something, maybe if released it around that time, that would have worked and all. Although I do remember hearing a situation where they did a 2D Sonic game that was released around the time Super Mario Bros. Wonder came out, and that didn't do very well for them, and they kind of maybe we should have released it during the Christmas season and all. So whatever the case is, it is a little bit unfortunate indeed that the game certainly didn't do well, at least according from Sega's view, because there's nothing wrong with competition. There's nothing wrong with something to compete against, like say the Mario Kart series and everything like that. I think competition is still very important. Nevertheless, though, although I will admit, some folks were treating this as like the Mario Kart World Killer and all, and yeah, that did not exactly happen and everything, though. So overall, a little bit unfortunate that CrossWorlds didn't do as well as Sega had hoped for, at least according to what Sega is saying. But who knows? Maybe in the long run it will be an evergreen title, and maybe it will fare better, though. Although I do think some of that could be that the Switch 2 version, and this could be just one factor, not the only factor. Maybe putting it on a game key card may have not sat well with everybody out there, though. Although I did hear they're doing like a physical version, an actual physical version, indeed. But time will tell. We'll see if in the long run Sonic Racing CrossWorld does better and all. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 2, and this one has to do with Nioh 3 and supposedly the fact that this may be the third entry could be a timed exclusive and all. So, excuse me, we'll take a quick break and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of my 2 cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at Nioh 3 and the fact that it may not be a PlayStation exclusive at the very least, though, or at least if what this was posted on its latest trailer turned out to is accurate and all. Now, for those who are not familiar, the Nioh series, or NIOH, has sort of been, up to this point, been exclusive to basically the PlayStation system, the PS4 and the PS5. The series is basically, I would say the best way to describe it is think if Onimusha was a Souls-like game to a certain degree. I think that's kind of how I would see it, though. And it is a series I do enjoy, a little bit more than, say, the Souls-like game that is done by From Software and all. Although I did enjoy the Elden Ring, I will admit to that, to be exact, though. But this one I did like from Team Ninja because of its, they're known for their fast-paced type of games and everything. And the series would also tie into other games as well, in terms of such as basically, Wulong Fallen Dynasty, which did see a multi-platform release, and Rise of the Ronin, another game they did that's exclusive to the PlayStation systems at the very least, which supposedly, according to them, this all ties into the sort of the universe that Ninja Gaiden is part of and all, at least according to what I've read online and everything. But in your case, though, the series has mostly been on Sony's system and all, and most people think it's basically was an exclusive to their system, as well as also coming to the PC and all. Well, with the recent release of Nioh 3 recently coming out, the possibility of the series coming to other systems like the Xbox or even Nintendo platform, it does sound like that could technically happen. In an article from Video Game Chronicles, it reads that according to a new trailer on the official PlayStation YouTube channel, which details some of the game's features, as spotted by The Gamer, the trailer ends with a small print in which states that the game's PS5 console exclusivity appears only to last until the start of August, after which it could appear on other systems and all. Also available on PC, the small print says not available on other consoles until at least 6 months after February 6, 2026. Although this isn't a necessary confirmation that Nioh 3 will be released on either Xbox Series X and S or Nintendo Switch 2, it does at least suggest that it could be possible from August onward. Honestly, that would be very interesting if this does technically happen, because like I said before, it has been up to this point only exclusive on the PlayStation system. To see this series make its way over to other systems after August and everything, that would be very interesting indeed. And I also do wonder if this opens the door to the possibility that Nioh 1 and 2 can also make its way to other systems as well. So that would be very interesting if that happens indeed, though. It's possible that maybe Koei Tecmo is sort of reevaluating, exclusivity and all, much like what Square Enix did after the release of Final Fantasy Rebirth, which there was some back and forth whether that game did well or not. Square Enix reevaluated their approach and supposedly decided to take a more multi-platform approach, which is what we saw with Final Fantasy VII Remake make its way to Xbox Series X and S and the Nintendo Switch 2, which reports are coming out that the Switch 2 might be doing very well indeed, though. So it's possible Koei Tecmo could be taking a similar approach to this indeed, though. And if it were to be announced for any system like the Switch 2 or Xbox Series X and S, it would be very interesting to see how well that game would run on those systems, especially on the Switch 2. Indeed, I would be very interested to see how well that game would run on something like a console handheld hybrid indeed, though. Obviously, we still have to wait to hear from what Koei Tecmo has to say and all, so we'll have to wait until like sometime August to see if any kind of announcement does come out saying, oh, we're bringing this to other systems and all. But this is very interesting to see what would be viewed as an exclusive for PlayStation start making its way over to other systems and all. So overall, very interesting fine print in one of the latest trailers for Nioh 3 and all. And it will be really interesting to see if the third entry or any of the previous entries do make their way to other systems, whether it's the Xbox Series X and S, Switch 2, or even both and all. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 3. And this one has to do with the latest Nintendo financial report that come out, including basically some comments in regards of Metroid Prime 4 and what Nintendo could be looking at or considering a possible Switch 2 price increase. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 3 of my Might You Sent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at Nintendo's financial report that they came out this week, including situations surrounding the possibility of a price hike to what's going on with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond in terms of its sales and all. Now, what's interesting about this financial report is that there were some reports coming out a bit earlier that indicated that Nintendo may have not had a great holiday season and all. The claim is that this was heard from like one of the employees or something like that. Well, it seems, at least according to what we've seen so far, it seems that Nintendo may have had a good holiday season, to be exact. At least according to their financial report, they are reporting that as of December 31st, 2025, the Nintendo Switch 2 has so far, in terms of hardware side, has sold 17.37 million units, while the software side, 37.93 million units were sold. Here, that's in the Switch 1, which has 155.37 million units sold, with 1,500.16 million units though. So for the Switch 1, it's creeping closer to the PS2's lifetime sales number. Whether it will overtake it or not remains to be seen and everything like that, but at least on the sales side, it remains the fastest selling console in history and all. So it seems to be doing very well for Nintendo at this time. It will be very interesting to see how 2026 plays out for Nintendo going throughout the year and all. In terms of the top selling titles, at the very least, on the Nintendo Switch 2 side, there are only 4 titles that made it on this list though, and that is Mario Kart World, selling at 14.3 million units. Donkey Kong Bonanza, selling 4.25 million units. Pokemon Legends ZA Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, selling 3.89 million units. And Kirby's Air Riders, selling at 1.76 million units. So very interesting to see Kirby Air Riders made that on the list though. I do remember how the GameCube version didn't sell very well at the time though, but it seems as though this version on the Switch 2 is. So certainly good news indeed. However, one game that was missing from this list was Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, which was released in December and all. And this led to some criticism and back and forth online, indicating that many believe the game flopped and everything like that. Although there were some reports about combining the sales between the Switch 1 and Switch 2 versions and all. And there were some people posting videos or pointing out saying that Metroid Prime 4 was a failure and all. Well, Nintendo responded to some of those stuff that came out though, at least according to what GameFile journalist Stefan Tolo has reached out to Nintendo and got an official confirmation that the combined sales of 2 titles has surpassed the 1 million mark. This is the message that was given to him, and he said, quote, following some consideration yesterday about neither the Switch nor the Switch 2 version Metroid Prime 4, released on December 4th, making Nintendo's million seller list for the period ending December 31st, a Nintendo rep confirmed to me today that the combined sales of those 2 versions have in fact passed 1 million copies. So it's possible one version sold maybe a little bit more than the other version though. So it doesn't sound like, at least according to how this is being said though, it doesn't sound like the game was the flop that some folks were making it sound like to be. Now, it still remains a controversial entry though. There are some who like it, some who don't though. I am still playing the game though. I am enjoying it though. I'm not saying it's perfect. I do think there are some flaws to it though, but I still am enjoying the game though. I do think some of the hate towards it is a little bit ridiculous to a certain extent though, but nevertheless, I am still enjoying the game though. Hopefully if this is true though, hopefully this is a sign that maybe Metroid Prime 5 is still going to happen. And if it does happen though, I'm hoping that now that, Retro Studio got everything together though, maybe this time around they can maybe try to go a different direction to a certain extent compared to what they were doing with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, because there are some reports claiming that they had to continue on what Bandai Namco started to a certain degree. So who knows though? We'll have to wait and see. But it sounds like, at least according to Nintendo, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond though, at least sounds like it did very well, at least according to what Nintendo was saying and all. And finally, though, with the sales report coming out that's showing that the Switch 2 is doing very well, there is still some concerns about the possibility of a price hike and all. And this all has to do with the RAM shortage situation. Some of it is that, some of it's the tariffs as well, though. But a lot of it is the RAM shortage because of a lot of these, AI databases that we've been hearing, though. And we've seen some price hikes with the PS5, and even the Xbox Series X and S has seen some recent price hikes indeed, though. Nintendo, on the other hand, has yet to raise the price, at least on the Switch 2. I remember hearing the Switch 1 getting a price increase, but Switch 2, not yet. But it sounds like Nintendo isn't ruling out the possibility of a price hike for the Switch 2 at all. In one of the articles, basically the Nintendo president recently was basically raised some eyebrows talking about the end of the fiscal, about what we could see about the possibility with a mention about the memory price reason thanks to the avert of AI, questioning potential price increase for the Switch 2 are lingering. When asked though, the Nintendo president provided the most corporately answer imaginable, one that certainly won't assure fear anytime soon. He simply said Nintendo will carefully consider the matter while taking a comprehensive look at the state of adaptation of the platform, current sales trend, cost, profitability, marketing environments, and other factors. So it could go either way. At least this article from Nintendo Life and all. As much as I would not like to see the Switch 2 get a price hike, though, I certainly won't rule out the possibility we could see a price hike increase for it, though. And we've seen some stuff increase because of stuff like the RAM storage. Tariffs are also another factor as well. So it would not surprise me if that is the case, if Nintendo ends up hiking the price for the Switch 2. It would be unfortunate, don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't be shocked indeed. What kind of impact that could have on them trying to make the Switch 2 a success and all, it remains to be seen, though. It is possible that the price hike could prevent someone from maybe buying one right away, or maybe wait until Black Friday and see if there's a price drop or something like that. So there's a lot of factors that could play into this. So it doesn't sound like we're seeing a price hike just yet, but it's by no means out of the realm of possibility in any shape and any form. So overall, it sounds like the Switch 2 is doing very well, indeed, at least according to Nintendo's financial reports, though. It seems that Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, when you combine the sales of the Switch 1 and Switch 2 version, that game seems to be doing very well, at least according to what Nintendo is basically saying though, and at least according to the statement that the president of Nintendo is basically saying, it sounds like it's not out of the realm of possibility we could see a price hike for the Switch 2. Like I said, I would hope that's not the case, but when you factor in the whole RAM storage situations, for building a lot of these AI databases to tariffs, though, it's certainly not out of the realm of possibilities. And like I said before, I wouldn't be shocked if a price hike does happen for the Switch 2 and all. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to do our fourth and final part, and this one has to do with my thoughts on the Nintendo Partner Showcase that happened this week. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with our fourth and final part of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look, or at least me giving my thoughts on the Nintendo Partner Showcase that happened this week. Now, there have been some rumors back and forth about the possibility, we might get a director or something like that and all, and many were wondering when it was going to happen and everything, and it would also be the first, direct or showcase that this time really evolved like the Switch 2 and all. I mean, we had some in the past, though, when the Switch 2 launched, though, but they were there was the Switch 2 was just getting started and all. Now that we're in February and everything like that, and most of the dust has settled with the launch of the Switch 2, this was going to be very interesting to see what we were going to see from this, including from third-party developers and everything like that. And after watching the showcase, I would say this though. I won't say it's perfect or this is going to be a memorable showcase and all, but there were some pretty good announcements here and there though, and I do think there were two companies I thought came out as sort of the winners, at least with this partner showcase, with some of the games they showed and everything. So I'm going to break it down into what I like and what I didn't like, mixed or not 100% sure about. In terms of what I like, though, I will say the winners I thought for this showcase was both Square Enix and Capcom, though, and I think they did a good job showing off some of their games and everything like that. For Square Enix, I think the two were the Adventures of Elliot, the Millennium Tale, and probably the big one from them was hearing confirmation that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will be coming to the Nintendo Switch 2, which many were wondering if that game was going to come or not, but it sounds like that was going to be the case and all, and I think that is certainly some good news indeed. We also learned that the game is, in terms of the file size, will be 102 gigabytes, which if that is correct, and I'm assuming most likely that will be the case though, that means just like with Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate, more than likely it will be a game key card. I'm aware a lot of people are fans of game key cards and everything like that, though, but given the fact that the file size, at least for the actual Switch 2 cartridges, is only 64 gigabytes at this time, though, I can understand a title like this, like with Final Fantasy VII Remake being at 90 gigabytes, how that basically when you have to use a game key card, though. The other one was Capcom, as well as they basically showed off, 3 games as well. Monster Hunter Stories 3. I did like the second one on the Switch 1 though. I'll give this one a try as well. Pragmata was definitely another one. This one was a bit of a surprise when they announced that this was coming to the Switch 2 as well, along with an amiibo. Indeed. I believe a demo is already out. I'll have to try it out for the Switch 2, the demo on the Switch 2 when I get the chance and all. I will say though, the gameplay looks very interesting indeed, so that one I'm definitely keeping an eye out though. And Resident Evil Requiem is definitely one on my radar indeed, that this one's coming to the Switch 2 as well, although there are claims that the footage that they showed, Nintendo was deliberately not aiming for the enemies because they wanted to keep the video that they showed PG and all. I don't know much about that or anything, but in either case, I am looking forward to that one, including with the amiibos will be out this summer, and we know that Resident Evil, basically Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil Village will also be coming to the Switch 2 as well. I think it will be released the same time Requiem comes out. So I will say the big winners obviously were Capcom and Square Enix in terms of what they showed during this partner showcase and all. The next one is, of course, Tokyo Scramble, which looks kind of interesting indeed. A bit of a survival element to it though. A lot of people are saying they're getting a Dino Crisis vibe to that game, so that one looks kind of interesting indeed, including the game sharing part, which basically has one person controls one part of the game, the other one can control another part of the game, so that's kind of interesting to an extent though. Another game they showed is from Falcom's Kyoto XAN ADUs. It's from the same studio that did, the Trial series though, and the Yeast or Y series and all. So this one's sort of interesting indeed, and I would this one looks interesting. I would definitely be keeping an eye out for this one indeed. There were some clips of other games that they were being shown as well. Two of them that originally were on other systems, one being only on the PS5, would be Grand Blue Fantasy Relink Endless Ragnarok and Tale of Rise Beyond the Dawn Edition are both coming to the Nintendo Switch 2, which is certainly a nice thing indeed. I like this. I'm glad those two games are coming to the Switch 2 and all. And last but not least, though, in terms of a closeout, though, we did basically had Bethesda really showed off some of the games that they were bringing over. Oblivion Remastered will be making its way over to the Switch 2, which I think that's certainly nice. Along with Fallout 4, basically we now saw a bit more of that one, and that's coming to the Switch 2, which is good. And of course, we actually got to see some footage of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle on the Switch 2, which we now know that's actually going to be on a Switch 2 cartridge. So that certainly is good news indeed for those who are more into the physical versions of the games, indeed and all. So that certainly is definitely good news for those who were wondering about that with Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So that certainly was good news too. As far as what I didn't like or mixed or not 100% sure about, I'm going to start off with, as I mentioned before, with Bethesda. And I think Bethesda's presentation of it is extremely mixed in my view, though. While the Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and also confirming that will be in the actual Switch 2 cartridge, I think that's great. I do feel that there are some cases where they missed an opportunity to announce some games like Doom the Dark Age. I would have liked to see that get announced, would have loved to see that get announced during the partner showcase. But I think the big one for me from Bethesda that I think might turn some folks away is the fact that we now learn that Oblivion Remaster and Fallout 4 on Switch 2 is going to be basically a code in a box, which is basically an empty box with a piece of paper with a code on it, which to me, in my view, it's worse than a game key card. I mean, say what you will about game key cards, and I do agree there are some criticism towards it though, but at least with basically a game key card, not only they are not tied to your account, but they could also be resold and bought used as well. So there is certainly value with the game key cards more than say a code in a box though. And honestly, if you're doing a code in a box, you might just buy the game through the Nintendo eShop if you're just going to do that, to be exact. So the decision to basically have Fallout 4 and Oblivion Remaster be a code in a box though might turn some folks away from buying those games though. So we'll have to wait and see and everything like that. So that one, I would say Bethesda was sort of mixed. Great with Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, confirming to be in a Switch 2 game cartridge. Not so great that Oblivion Remaster and Fallout 4 for the Switch 2 is going to be a code in the box though. Continuing on with somewhat with outside Bethesda is, in my view, a missed opportunity for Microsoft to show off some of the games they may bring over to the Switch 2. Now, we've heard Microsoft talk about bringing some of their games over to the Switch 2 and all, but we have yet to hear them make any announcements at this time. I think it would have been nice if they had announced something like Fable or Forza Horizon or the Halo 1 remake. I think that would have been nice if they had announced those during the partner showcase. It's possible they could announce it for a direct or a general direct and all. That's a possibility, but I do feel like it was a missed opportunity for them to not announce anything like that for the Switch 2 outside of, games we know that are coming from Bethesda, which is owned by Microsoft and all. The next one is, and I think this is something that for Switch 2 owners, especially with a lot of these third-party games coming to the Switch 2, you might want to keep your expectations in terms of those who are looking for a physical copy of the games though. I mean, knowing the majority of third-party games for the Switch 2, there's a very good chance, more than likely, a lot of them are either going to be game key cards or a code in a box. And as I mentioned before, I believe the code in a box is the worst, to be exact though. I know, as I said before, game key cards are controversial depending on who you're asking though. Not everybody is a fan of it though. And I do think there is valid arguments you can make against game key cards. But at the same time, as I said before, I can understand the argument for using them, such as, with games like Final Fantasy VII Remake and the upcoming Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, given the file size of those games. And they, as I mentioned before, are not tied to your account, at least from what I remember hearing, and they could be bought used or resold and everything. So there is some value to it, but given the direction we've seen a lot of third-party studios out there, expect to learn that a lot of these games could end up either being a game key card or a code in a box. I know that's not something people want to hear and all, but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot more third-party support start using that game key card or code in a box kind of approach and everything. So that's something that I think a lot of folks will have to realize, especially if they want to see a lot of third-party games coming to the Switch 2. Again, I'm not a fan of game key cards, but I'm not outright against them either though. And last but not least, though, I will say that while I do think a lot of the games they announced during this partner showcase were good, don't get me wrong, a majority of them were pretty much stuff that we kind of knew that was coming. Some rumors, some kind of confirmed to a certain extent. So there wasn't any real like wow moment or like this surprised everybody out there or anything like that. I just felt like a lot of these announcements we kind of figure were coming, to be exact though. That doesn't mean this direct was bad. It just wasn't anything special or spectacular, at least in my view and all. Overall, I would say this was an alright partner showcase though. I don't think it was the best one out there or anything like that, but it wasn't terrible, at least in my view though. I think there were some pretty good announcements coming from this presentation. As I said before, I thought Capcom and Square Enix were, in my view, the big winners of basically this partner showcase and all. And there were certainly some smaller titles and all in here and there. I think, and also I think knowing the fact that Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is going to be in a Switch 2 cartridge definitely is a good thing indeed and all. So there were some good announcements to be exact though. If I had to give it a grade, in my view, I don't normally do grades and all. I would say I would give it, I think, a B to be exact though. I don't think it was as awful as some on the internet made it sound like it is, but I won't say it's anything special or anything like that though. It will be very interesting to see when we see the general direct. There is some speculation it could happen in March or April for that matter, so that's a possibility as well though. But I will say for a direct that most, or partner showcase that focus mostly on third-party support though, I would say this one isn't bad. I think this one was good, to be exact. Just, in my view, just nothing memorable. That's all. At least that's how I'm seeing it and everything. Okay, this concludes It's My 2 Cent video for this week. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about Sonic Racing CrossWorlds not meeting Sega expectation, though? Do you think Sega raised their expectation maybe a bit too high in any way, though? Do you think that this title could be an evergreen title? Do you think it could basically eventually do well in the long run in any way? What are your thoughts about Nioh 3 possibly possibly by August it won't be a PlayStation exclusive? Do you think that's interesting that it's only a 6 months exclusive and all? Do you think that it's possible we could see this game make the Nioh 3 or even Nioh 1 or 2 possibly make its way to the Xbox Series X and S or even the Switch 2 for that matter though? What are your thoughts about the Nintendo financial report though? Do you think 17 million units worldwide for the Switch 2 is a good number? Do you think that number will climb in it? How do you think that number will climb once we start seeing more and more titles for the Switch 2? Do you think Nintendo was right in terms of responding to the situation surrounding Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, in which they claimed the combined sales of the Switch 1 and Switch 2 version were over 1 million copies sold? And do you believe, given the Nintendo president's response, do you believe that Nintendo will raise the price of the Switch 2, mostly in response to ranging stuff such as RAM shortage, to tariffs, or that kind of situation? Or do you expect Nintendo will keep the price of the Switch 2 where it is right now? And what are your thoughts about this Nintendo Partner Showcase? Did you go in with high expectations or low expectations though? Were you pleased with what was shown during this Partner Showcase? Were you disappointed? Were there games that you wish or third-party games that you wish that they had announced or should have announced during this Partner Showcase in any way? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you do like this video, I hope you hit the like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You can do it through PayPal Me, Patreon, or Steam Labs. Links will be in the description of this video, assuming you're watching this either on YouTube or Patreon. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye!